The slideshow behind me, which I'll try not to get too much in the way of, are part of the Art and Activism exhibit that's currently on exhibit at Visual Arts Alberta, which features my photos and the work of 2 activist painters until November the 26th. That's in the same building as our courthouse gallery on 112th Street and 102nd Avenue, and these are the bare naked grannies that you just saw. And it's on display until November 26th, and it is free to attend, so I hope that you can check it out. I'm a multimedia artist. I work in the areas of journalism, particularly writing and editing, as well as photography, videography, and social media consulting. I made a conscious decision to apply my skills towards activism because I didn't see a lot of progressive events covered in the mainstream media, and no one seemed to be documenting much as far as what was going on in Edmonton. So I really felt that, that there was a need for that to be happening. So why is it important to document events? Well, first of all, to have a historical record of what happened. Activism is as much a part of the history of Edmonton as other things that are documented. And to know what happened and why and where and all of those things for future generations to learn from, we need to document it. To protect yourself and your colleagues by having recorded details that memory may otherwise lose, and I will talk about that a little bit later. To share your movement and experiences online, and to connect with like-minded groups and individuals, and to grow beyond your borders. Documenting helps build grassroots community locally and beyond through the sharing of resources, through sharing your videos and sharing your photos, and sharing your writing and your opinions on different things. It helps attract others to the movement, whatever movement you happen to be part of, by presenting who you are and what you do. I became involved about a decade ago. I went online, I tried to find other like-minded individuals and groups to connect with because I was interested in human rights and social justice and various related topics. I couldn't find anything. I found very, very little at that time. I connected with an arts group and eventually heard about a peace march happening. This was like September of 2005, and I went, and just out of habit I brought a camera with me because I've always been into photography. I asked permission if I could take pictures because I was new on the scene and I was concerned that people would be suspicious of what I was doing, and they told me it was okay. I uploaded the photos to my then blog that evening, and then on an email list, remember email mailing lists? This was before Facebook. Believe it or not, there was a world online before Facebook. I announced the link and what it was of, and the site got so much traffic that it crashed. And I realized, you know, I may be onto something here. You know, there might actually be a need for this in the activist community. Pictures and videos speak volumes beyond just written descriptions, but writing is important too, as I will get to in a short while. It allows you to become the media, to cover important gaps in the news and in coverage. Citizen journalism is a thing. I mean, it is a very big thing right now. There are unprecedented opportunities in today's world for our voices to be heard. And even just for yourself. Just like there are those people who are always taking pictures of family gatherings, and events and protests can be important moments in our lives as well, if we're people who enjoy going to those kind of things and taking part in social justice. So I understand there's someone here tonight who's going to be discussing video at length, so I'm going to focus more on photography and writing, although especially with photography, there is definitely some overlap. So photography, you know, I have to acknowledge this first of all. When it comes to anything involving technology, there is an issue of access and an issue of privilege, because first of all, you need equipment. You have to have a camera, and ideally you need a computer. But times are changing. You don't need a fancy camera. You don't need a DSLR or a big fancy video camera. Most of us have smartphones or a tablet or something like that. and they can suffice. You can take really high quality photos with smartphones now and videos as well. Most cameras, there's also overlap with technology because most phones can also take videos and most still cameras can also take video. And some video cameras can also take decent stills. One of the problems that I had early on was, well, I started initially just doing stills and then I moved into video, and it was kind of clumsy because I had these like 2 cameras and I'd be running alongside the protest down White Avenue, trying, you know, which camera I'm going to take a few stills and quickly whip out the video camera and I'm filming, and then eventually I got a video camera that takes high definition stills. So when I pull the LED screen out, I can be running alongside filming at the same time. There's like a little photo button on the LED screen, and I'm doing at the same time getting still photos that are kind of replicating when I'm videoing as well. The benefit of using though a tablet or a smartphone is that you can share immediately your work online, especially if you're at a Wi-Fi connection. Or even with data, but you've got to be really careful because videos and photos eat up a data plan, as well as Pokemon as well as people are you can post immediately to Instagram, to Flickr, to Facebook, to Twitter, in many cases all at once with the push of a button. And there are even point-and-shoot cameras, like ones that are not even that expensive, that have Wi-Fi capability in them as well. I personally prefer just to go home and sift through my photos and pick the ones I want to upload before I do, but on my phone as well, I also like to occasionally take an Instagram or something just really quickly to put it on social media, just to let people know where we are and what we're doing, because people might be late or they might not have heard of the event, or they might want to just come in at the last minute and take part. I also have just about every media outlet following me on Twitter, so it's good to try whatever mainstream coverage we can get. I definitely try. Don't forget to tag your photos and add hashtags. Tags are like keywords, and hashtags are those things that use the number symbol, and they work as keywords that you click on them and it takes you to all of the posts in Twitter or Facebook that are connected to that same term. For example, YEG tags hashtags for Edmonton. Photos in particular, when you're taking pictures, pictures should tell a story. So be sure to include backdrops, include crowds, include the context. Don't always focus on just like one individual without context, or you end up sometimes with photos that look like they could be taken anywhere. For example, I edited a community newspaper in the inner city, and one of the volunteers of the paper took some pictures at a community festival going on in one of the parks in the area, and he sent them in to me, and they were pictures of some friends of his, a family, sitting on the grass enjoying the music, and the only thing in the picture were the family sitting on the grass. It could have been taken, the picture could have been taken anywhere. There was no context. The picture did not tell a story. Picture of the family maybe with the stage in the background or more of the audience, something like that, would have provided more context. Now, sometimes there are issues that are raised in terms of taking photos and posting photos with people in them, and you may not necessarily know who the people are, and you may not be comfortable. Doing that. So generally, the general rule of thumb that I use, and first of all, I just want to specify I'm not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice, but my understanding is that if it's photos that are taken at a public event, in a public space, there are no restrictions in terms of videoing and photographing and posting. Now, if you are singling somebody out in photos as a courtesy, you might want to ask them if there's any concern. It never hurts to err on the side of caution. Also, I always respect it if somebody asks me not to post their photo or their image online, even though there's two issues here. There's legally and then there's morally and ethically. You don't know what's going on in somebody's life. Somebody could be stalking them, so, there could be some kind of legal issue or family issue. So if somebody doesn't want their picture online, even though they are, you know, if you're going to a protest or a public event, you know, there is no expectation of privacy. I always respect that. Same thing with children. I'm always very, very careful when it comes to children. I try to photograph children who I know their parents, or I try to photograph them in a way that their faces are not recognizable. I try to photograph them from the side or from behind, because again, you don't know what their situation is. Those could be foster children that are being protected from an abusive home or something, or any, you know, you just want to be really careful in that regard. Police and law enforcement can be photographed and videoed. They don't have the right to tell you to delete photos or videos. As far as I know, again, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so don't you know, take this as legal advice necessarily. And in terms of photographs, what to do with them after the fact, in terms of editing, now I know that some people like to Photoshop their photos a lot and enhance the colors and crop them and draw things on, I don't know. It depends what you're trying to do. I prefer to shoot in such a way that it requires minimal editing afterwards. I kind of have sort of a gritty style where I just kind of like to show what's going on in the moment and put that online and let people see that and come to their own conclusions. I don't like to alter things too much. Now, if I've got a really good photo of people taking part in a march, and this often happens when people are mobile and they're marching, is that I'll get a really good photo of a bunch of people with some really cool sides, and then there's somebody who kind of just is blurred out right in the, and half cut off right in the very front of the photo. So I'll just crop, you know, I'll crop that out. But other than that, I don't do a lot of post-production when it comes to my photography. Documentation to me means being true to what I see, and I don't want to change it or enhance it too much. But if you do want to do some cropping or editing, often you can do that right in your phone. Now you can. And also most computer operating systems come with a basic photo editor as well as a video editor. So again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on fancy, expensive programs. And there is a bit of a learning curve, even with the free operating system ones like iMovie in a Mac, which is what I tend to use. It's a matter of practice. And so I will come back to some more about photography later when we talk about some best practices, but I'm going to move on to writing. Writing captures moments, it describes them, it's another way of sharing information. Writing and photography can be entwined because when you post photos on social media, you can write captions, you can write descriptions. I've seen Instagram photos with some, you know, a couple of paragraphs of some pretty intense descriptions. So the possibility is there. Some people like to blog. WordPress and Blogger are two free options. WordPress, I find, is better for making full-fledged websites. So if you want a blog incorporated with an About Me page and more information about who you are and what you're doing or what your organization is. If you want just a plain blog, which is a series of posts, I find that Blogger tends to be more intuitive. I've actually heard people comment that they prefer to use Blogger to WordPress if they are just straight out blogging. But of course, WordPress can be used for that as well. And there are also sharing functions for social media that come kind of baked in with WordPress and Blogger. You can write Facebook posts. And again, you can illustrate your Facebook post with photos. I find that the best Facebook posts and social media posts are best if they're kept really succinct and if hashtags are added as well to make them more searchable. Now, you don't have to be an English major, you don't have to be a really talented writer. You just have to be descriptive. Try to be as concise as possible and succinct as possible. I find as an editor, the biggest mistake that people make is they tend to be too wordy. They tend to get to a certain point, even of rambling, and it's really good just to be as to the point as possible. Even if you are working with other people on your blog, or other people in an organization or on a project, work as a team and have someone edit your work. I am the worst at editing my own work, even though I am an editor. I always try to have somebody else edit my work that I write, if it's for publication, because you miss even typos, like you miss them. You're so familiar with what you've written that your eye just skips things that somebody who's not as familiar with it wouldn't miss. Another way of writing, another way of getting your opinions and your views out there, letters to the editors and newspapers. Now, again, we're getting into sort of mainstream media territory, so if you write a letter to the editor about a contentious issue, don't be surprised if it doesn't get published or it gets edited way, way down. I find that a letter to the editor has more of a chance of getting published if it's kept as short as possible. Usually 300 words or less, but even like 100 to 150 is generally ideal. There are activist websites out there like Rabble and other smaller ones. Rabble is the big one, but there are smaller ones as well. And they're usually really hungry for submissions because they can't pay. So if you're someone who wants to sort of just build a portfolio and get your work out there and you don't mind that you're not getting paid for your work, go online and see where there are some activist types of websites that you can contribute to. But as always, be careful what you write. There's a saying, especially with social media, say it and forget it, write it and regret it, because nothing ever really permanently vanishes from the internet, as Deborah Drever learned when she was elected as an MLA. You don't want something coming back at you down the road that, because you're just being silly, or another thing is naming names, making accusations, even if you know them to be true or you're convinced that you're right in what you're saying. You've got to be really, really careful. Publish work online, especially concerning blogs and websites. It usually has a unique link that can be shared on social media, and that's something that I often do. Is I will blog something, or if I find out my work has been published on an online publication, I will get the link for it, and I'll post it on Facebook, I'll post it on Twitter, I'll post it on my LinkedIn, just to get a wider reach for that. So those are that's the overview for writing and editing. I'm going to go into a few best practices. Generally for photos, and this can be applied for videos as well, something that seems like common sense, but is an area where people make a mistake quite often. Make sure the batteries in your phone and your camera are charged. I cannot tell you how many times I've had friends show up to an event. I'm like, I'm gonna take some pictures. Oh no, my camera's dead, or my phone is dying. I've got like 10% left on my battery. So carry a charger or those little battery packs for phones if you have one. I found those to be a lifesaver sometimes. Camera batteries can be a little more difficult because they tend to be proprietary. Nowadays, they're not just the AA rechargeables like they used to be. So if it's economical, I will carry a spare that's charged up and I can pop in. I find with my video camera I need to. But at the very least, just make sure that it is charged up in advance of a major event. For Instagram, make sure you have good descriptions, lots of hashtags, and that you've had your settings available to share on other social media like Facebook and Twitter or Tumblr just at the push of a button through Instagram. On Facebook, don't tag people who are not in photos. It's a pet peeve of many and a great way to get defriended, because it really annoys me when people tag me in posts just to get my attention and it actually has nothing to do with me and I'm not in it. Respect it when people don't want to be tagged, but fortunately now, there used to be a time when if you wanted to be untagged, you had to ask the person who took the photo. You couldn't untag yourself. Now you can untag yourself, so that's not as big of an issue. On Flickr, which is actually my preferred way of sharing photos, same as the above as Instagram and Facebook with regard to descriptions and keywords and sharing, as well as adding people. Flickr has an add person function as well. And in terms of writing and blogging, make sure you use lots of keywords on your posts. Have someone else edit your work. Fact check what you're writing. Again, that comes back to being careful. And share links to your work on social media. So that's my kind of rundown on writing and photography.
It's an awkward situation.
Okay, I will tell you an awkward situation. yeah, I've been at this long enough. There have been numerous awkward situations to pick just one, but one was I was shooting a rally, a march and rally in Churchill Square, and as the group of people were marching by me, there was this woman who got in my face and told me I had no business to be photographing anybody recognizably because without getting people's written permission first. And she knew that I had to do that because her husband was a photographer. And I was trying to explain to her, no, this is a public event and you don't have to do that. And I'm getting into an argument with this woman while the event is marching by me and I'm missing the shots that I needed to be taken. So eventually we just kind of agreed to disagree, and she's like, well, you memorize this face and you make sure that I'm not in anything that goes online. So I'm like, you can be darn sure I did make sure of that later. Even though I didn't have to, I'm not looking to get into a spitting contest with somebody over the use of their image. So that was probably one of the more contentious issues that I faced. And again, like I said, I just respect it if people don't want to be photographed. And then,
In regards to copyrights, let's say you are writing a novel on Instagram, because there's a lot of novelists on Instagram, so they write chapters every week. So what happens if someone copies your work? Because a lot of people use pseudonyms.
yeah.
Do you know what are the
Well, there's an interpretation that says that if something is published online, that's the first publishing of it. So if you publish something online, and of course, whatever your format you're publishing it on, there's a date and a time and everything, and you've got that, and then somebody else does that at a later date, you can show that you published it prior. And through a lot of, I'm not sure through blogs if there's a copyright, claim form kind of thing. I know on YouTube there is. I once had somebody lift one of my videos in its entirety and post it as their work on their YouTube without crediting me at all or anything. And there's a copyright claim form in YouTube where I was able to show that I had published my video first and that this person had taken it without permission, and it was dealt with. So you might want to maybe, if you're writing something online, after you publish it, maybe screen cap it, showing the date and time on it. If you have proof that you published it first, then you have a stronger ability to counter whatever somebody else would do with that material if they were to steal it from you. And of course, if you publish something online, it's, you have the copyright to it unless you're using some kind of a service where it says otherwise. Now I know with YouTube and some of the other photo sharing programs out there, they claim that they can use your work for whatever they want. They can take your pictures or whatever, and use it for whatever they want. They usually don't. I know that is a concern for some people, but I would be less upset if Facebook used something I wrote as an example for something than if some person took something I wrote and tried to market it as their own and tried to make money off of it in that way. So, and I haven't been able to find a solution to other than using, major social media services in order to the best and the fastest and the broadest way of getting work out there. So, but I do realize that there are concerns that can be raised from that as well. Yeah.
I just want to clarify with your earlier story, was she correct in saying that you couldn't take pictures legally?
No, she was not correct. It was in Churchill Square. It was a public rally in a public space. People are taking part in it. You have to expect that your picture is going to be taken. And there's no expectation of privacy in a public place like that.
I was at that march there's a couple pictures that went by there.
Yeah,
And we went into Canada Place that time.
yeah, yeah.
They asked us not to take any pictures, security and everybody, you know, like they wouldn't allow us. And that's a public place.
But it's owned by a company.
But it's, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a gray
we own it,
area.
they work for us.
Yeah. It's a gray area when you're looking into, like, it's a building that technically anybody can go into anytime, but it's privately owned. What has been explained to me by the other photographers and freelancers who I know is that, again, it's public in that anybody can walk in there, there's no restrictions on taking pictures. Just because a security guard tells you that you can't doesn't necessarily mean that you actually can't. Certainly, like I said, it's a gray area. It could be challenged. It just depends how much of a headache you want at the time. Yes?
Could you speak to your experience targeting audiences? Because I'll post things on Facebook or Twitter and I'll know if I put word things in such a way that only a certain amount of people will understand what I'm saying. And I just wonder what your experience of that is like.
In terms of what? Like in terms of writing on too high of a level for
Yeah, or
people
just
to
like
understand?
terminology. Like some people don't understand that we're all in treaties, or some people don't understand what oppression is, or
Right.
even what social justice is. But
Yeah,
we still need to reach out to those people in some way.
yeah,
Yeah, just thought with your thoughts and
yeah.
understandings.
Well, I certainly don't think you should inhibit yourself or restrict yourself from using those terms or writing about those things. I think that where questions are raised, all you can do is, social media is great for fostering discussion and to try to explain yourself as best you can, as respectfully as you can. A lot of people ask questions like that. They're not necessarily trying to cause an argument or be belligerent, but there are people who really don't understand that we are living on treaty territory. They don't understand what oppression is because they don't experience it. And to a lot of people, if they don't experience something, it doesn't exist. So it's just a question of just, trying to spread your work around as much as possible and just engaging in those discussions because they are important ones to have. And it generally, I find it becomes very clear very early on if somebody is sincerely asking questions because they want to learn or if they are just being a troll and they're trying to distract people and they're trying to cause problems, and just have to learn to be discerning in that way and where the best ways of spending your time is then. Yes?
You just mentioned how writing to the editor, for example, often gets edited down. So do you prefer blogs and smaller publications as opposed to bigger papers to get your story told authentically, without being edited?
Letters to the editor is one way of responding to a story in a newspaper as well as getting a very quick opinion out because they tend to have to be shorter now. If you want to go into more detail, you actually want to write a detailed article about oppression or an event what you learned from an event that you attended or something like that, then you might want to seek a different venue for it or do it as a blog. It just kind of depends. You kind of just have to, it just depends what the topic is and what kind of audience you're trying to reach. Okay.
Amazing, yeah.
I'm just, I want to thank you so much for coming, because I've been an activist in Edmonton for a while too, and you always see Paula behind the scenes capturing all this stuff, but we never get a chance to hear her and hear how you got into it and stuff like that, and we really appreciate you coming. And Paula is hanging out with us for the rest of the night.